off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center. Probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
And it is time to go live. It is Sunday, 11:05 Pacific, 12:05 Mountain, and we are live. Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at podcast_hockey, Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, the Hockey Podcast, where we stand strong at the Brock McGinn, 100 and Brock McGinn of subscribers. And then you can subscribe to the audio as after the podcast is up. And we are packed. There's Chris with the hair, the sharp hair. You're looking Tyler-esque today.
well, they opened up professional services again here in Alberta, so I was able to go get a haircut as of this week. So, yep, went for it.
Nice. Well, you look great. Tyler, how are you? You also look great, by the way. I'm not saying that you don't.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm all right. It's good to be back with you guys. It feels like it's been like 6 weeks or something. I know it's only been a couple, but lots happened here in the hockey world.
Yes, very much so. Sean, hello.
Hello, Kevin. Yeah, it has been a while since we've had Chris and Tyler on, and a lot has happened.
Yeah, and of course, Devin. Hello, Devin.
What's up, Kevin?
Not much. Sup? Sup?
Sup?
We're going to start with just something that just broke just before we came on. This is from CBC News. The federal government has approved a travel exemption for the final two rounds of the Stanley Cup that would allow NHL teams to cross the Canada-U.S. border without quarantining. Players and club personnel will be subject to enhanced public health measures. And it is part of a thread. NHL players and team personnel will cross the border using private planes and will be subject to pre- and post-arrival testing in addition to daily COVID-19 tests. The players will have to live in a modified quarantine bubble, and there will be no contact with the general bubble. I don't think I'm too surprised by that. I think that this was something that was in the works for some time, but for Montreal and Winnipeg, for the North team specifically, I think that this is good news for them.
Oh,
Absolutely.
definitely. Especially, Montreal's got the 2-0 lead. They've got the ability to have a significant amount of fans comparatively to Winnipeg. So that'll be good. I saw someone talking about how, like, why are they doing this, but you can't do it with MLS or Major League Baseball. I think it's I think one of the big factors there is that it's one team. It's gonna be one or two teams that's gonna end up doing that, as opposed to the numerous amounts of teams that go in and out of the border. If you're doing it that way, but this was expected on my side.
I mean, it's good news because the competitive disadvantage for the Canadian team, if they had to relocate, would have been put a bit of a cloud over the whole thing, I think, and sort of take away from the what is supposed to be the best couple of rounds in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So that's good news. I'm interested to know as well. Like from media point of view, Sportsnet's always had their own people on site for all of the Canadian team games. What are they going to do in this case now? Are they going to have to call some off the tube or what? I mean, we have seen that so far. They got John Bartlett and Gary Galley calling all these US games off the monitor. Very well, by the way. But, what's going to happen there? I'm kind of curious about that. But, now it's a question of Can one of those two Canadian teams left standing not only get through the next round, but see how they do in the finals, perhaps.
Yeah. Let's get into let's start with that. Let's start with the Montreal Winnipeg series. And Sean and I did a video. We did our reaction to the Mark Scheifele hit. And we were on just before the announcement. It was 4 games. So I wanted to start with Devin, Tyler, and Chris's reaction just to everything that happened, the Scheifele hit, the suspension, and kind of where you're at. And we'll start with Devin, then Tyler, then Chris.
I think it's the right call for 4 games. To me, it was predatory, 100% predatory. Whether or not it was clean or not, he did not go for the puck at all. He went straight for the body, and fair enough, that's fine. But it was just the way that it all played out, and you have to think that the injury to Evans was a part of it as well. So no surprise there. I predicted that it was going to be 3 to 4 games, and it turned out to be 4. So with a player like that in that vulnerable position, and obviously Jets were losing at that point. That's why they had the Hellebuck out of the net. He was sending a message, is what he was doing. He was sending a message for the games to come, and he crossed the line within that. And then on the opposite side, I guess you have Jake Evans. He's has to have his head up. I mean, okay, valid, but when there's an open net like that, it's really hard for a player to try and score a goal like that when you have somebody barreling down with that intent. I've had concussions like that multiple times. I've had 2 of them in the exact same play. Coming around the net, I was looking for an outlet pass, and I got leveled, and very, very similar. Obviously, not to the same extent. So I have a hard time saying that Jake Evans is at fault here. So 4 games makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think 4 games certainly sends the message to everybody. So that's good, because in some cases the number is just outrageously high or nowhere near enough. I don't think people are feeling like it's way off in this case. But again, it's quite frustrating. Like you got 4 games for this, you got 8 games for Kadri, you get other incidents that are won, and there still doesn't seem to be much consistency there. And part of it is, well, we're taking into account other factors. So in this case, I mean, I think it was really unnecessary. I mean, given the situation of the game, there was no need for that, and that's probably why the suspension was as strong as it was. I like Mark Scheifele. He doesn't have a history of this, but at the same time, that's what happened, and he has to suffer the consequences for that. And unfortunately for the Winnipeg Jets, that's a huge loss for their team as they fall behind 2-0 in this series.
Yeah, the fact that it's not only just the fact that he got suspended, but the injuries, it definitely is kind of putting Winnipeg behind the 8 ball in this regard. But yeah, I have to agree, 4 games sounds about the right amount. Just like as Tyler said, a lot of the times they either give like a hand slap that everyone seems to think is too light, or an outrageously high number. I thought 4 was pretty fair. Legally, like, I don't think it broke any other rules, but on a more like ethical side of things, like, yeah, he clearly went for the body, not for the puck at all. And just even from an eye test alone, that was a brutal hit. So yeah, I think 4 is fair.
It was a charge. Like, letter of the law, that's a charge. Whether or not he intended to go in and make that hit from the opposite blue line when he started skating, or whether he decided to me it looked like at the top of the circles, the amount of strides and the amount of distance traveled he had before making contact with Jake Evans was too much. And I thought it was going to be 2 or 3 games, but I think 4 is a fair amount. I don't think it's an unnecessarily overreaction to something like that, even though it was a brutal hit. but it still sends a message. Just 4 games could be the rest of this series, and even if Winnipeg can't figure things out, it could be 1 game next season. Like I think it's a very fair suspension with that. I think it's something that they need to start looking at doing more often for big hits like that, because concussions can change careers, can change lifestyles for these players.
And for those who don't know, this is Jake Evans' 3rd NHL concussion. He may have some junior concussions that we don't know about, but this is his 3rd NHL concussion. So don't know if we will see him in this series or not. I hope so. Certainly hope we see him again. I think it is a player that the Canadians will miss. And I mean, he's a fine player. But it's one of those situations, I think, that it felt to me, just to get into the series part of this, it really seems like from Friday, it took a lot of air out of Winnipeg. Like that was a Winnipeg team. I don't want to say that they looked defeated, but they certainly seemed, for two periods anyway, seemed quite distracted and didn't get a lot of offense on Carey Price. We will start with Chris on that, if you have any thoughts on that.
Don't really have a whole lot to add, to be entirely honest. I've been definitely catching as many games as I can during the playoffs, but I will admit I have only caught a certain amount of games. So I'll pass on this one.
Fair.
I think it's the Carey Price factor. I mean, when you're getting great looks and you just can't get the puck past that goalie, it really does become a real mental battle for everybody out there to find a way. You know, it gets deflating pretty fast when you're facing that kind of goaltending and you just can't buy a goal. I mean, that was happening to the Oilers too. There was just, like, you know, at some point you're looking at the ceiling, shaking your head, wondering how we're going to solve this guy. And I think that definitely translates through the whole team, and you see it in their body language that, you know, they don't want to come out and say we can't do it, but it sure, you know, they sure look deflated.
Let alone you do have that the injuries and obviously Scheifele suspension too on top of that. So it's a combination of everything. But when you run into a world class goalie like Carey Price, it's hard to really. Especially when he's firing the way that he has been, he is on fire, and you could see him gaining more confidence within the Toronto series too. In order to win in the playoffs, you need to have a really good goalie, a hot goalie, and right now the Canadians do.
Mm-hmm.
That, and this is the time that the Winnipeg needs Pierre-Luc Dubois to step up. In games 3 and 4 specifically, if he's not leading the charge and being able to put up points and be a center part of that offense, they're really going to struggle to score on Carey Price.
Yeah,
he needs to have shades of when he was back playing against Tampa Bay when they swept him, and he was a workhorse. We haven't seen that from him since. By the way, he has not been the same Pierre-Luc Dubois ever since that series. And Sean is 100% right. He needs to be stepping up because they traded Patrick Laine, a perennial 30-goal scorer, for him. And for me, I haven't really seen much from him. Anything close to what he got traded for, anywhere close to what we know that he can do. So in order for the Jets to be successful, yes, he has to show up.
Yeah. I mean, obviously tonight is a huge game. If the Canadians win, the Jets may not be swept, but I don't think they're winning this series. So they absolutely, this is a must, pretty much a must, as much win as we can say. I'm surprised they haven't used Blake Wheeler at center. I know he's played center before when Scheifele was injured. I'm surprised that they haven't done that. But I'm still not counting out the Jets. They've been through enough adversity that I'm not counting them out. I still think that they have a chance in this series, but obviously they need to win tonight. But I do think the injury to Devin, a Devin favorite, Dylan DeMello is hurting. That also hurts a little bit too. Although they allowed only one shorthanded goal, and they also need Paul Stastny back as well.
Well, yeah. As far as DeMello goes, he's one of their top 4 defensemen, and anytime a top 4 defenseman goes down, you expect somebody to jump up in their place. But we've been talking about this all year, that the Jets just don't have the depth within that organization on the blue line, and it's very, very noticeable right now with not having him. And I mean, obviously, Paul Stastny having that experience and solidifying that top 6, especially with Scheifele out, is a massive loss too. And once again, who's coming up? Who's next man up on that? Yes, they have the depth of having a good third line of Kopp, Lowry, and Appleton that could definitely step up. And Kopp has shown that he can play in that top 6 easily enough. But you're not replacing a Scheifele or a Stastny within that lineup with the amount of depth that they do have.
Yeah, as far as like from within the organization, it's definitely injuries and the suspensions that are hurting them the most right now, for sure.
Yeah. Without with the suspension to Scheifele, had they had a healthy Paul Stastny, I think that would have really helped them mitigate that. But without that, then you're desperately relying on Pierre-Luc Dubois to step up and be a top, like, to start producing as a top 6 center. You need Andrew Kopp and Adam Lowry and Mason Appleton to step up and almost become your de facto second line, just because that's the line that has been working for a lot of the playoffs and a lot of the season. That just seems to be able to just control play a little bit more than you would expect from a third line.
I'm just going to throw a name out for the offseason for Winnipeg. I'm just saying, I'm just going to throw a center out there that you may be interested in. I want Sean Monahan. I think Sean Monahan would actually be a good fit in Winnipeg. He would be a number 2 center. There wouldn't be a dispute about him being number 1 because you have Mark Scheifele there. I think he'd be a good fit there. I mean, you'd obviously would have to give up probably a Dubois or a Stastny, but if I'm Winnipeg, I certainly consider it. And if I'm Calgary, I'm not opposed to the idea of bringing Dubois in. I know he's struggled so far, but maybe he fits more in a Darryl Sutter system. I don't know. But if I'm Winnipeg, I'm certainly maybe calling Mr. Treliving about Sean Monahan in the offseason.
If I'm correct, though, Stastny, he's on his last year right now, so I'm pretty sure he's a UFA. I understand what you're saying, though, Kev. I don't like, it'd have to be, it wouldn't be a 1-on-1, a 1-for-1 for Monahan for Pierre-Luc Dubois. There would have to be something else within there for sure. But man, I don't know that. I guess from a Flames perspective, not a bad trade-off, but you have to. Pierre-Luc Dubois has to know that he has to be producing more, because Monahan, he's scored 25 plus pretty much every year, and or it was on pace for it, except for this year. So where are you going to get those goals from? And you'd have to expect that Pierre-Luc Dubois to produce on some sort of similar level.
I don't see that as a fit, Kev. I think you've got Dubois and Scheifele up the middle right now. Like what is wrong? Like, I think you being traded in this season and being traded from the team that you've grown up, you developed your only team you've known as an NHL player. There is some time. You have to give them some time to figure things out and everything like that. I think Winnipeg needs to be patient with Dubois, and if they do make a big move, it's got to be for a defenseman. Not another center. You're just exchanging parts at this point, doing lateral trades, and hoping that something magical happens. I think you have to start looking, if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, you have to start looking at trading from a strength to fill a weakness, not just swapping deck chairs on the Titanic.
But just to counter that out, though, if you're making the Monahan move, I mean, it's not just Monahan. There are other pieces that can come within that, so it can be a bigger trade than that. But I don't know. I think Monahan is a better. I don't know if a Dubois is ultimately a fit in Winnipeg. I think that's something I certainly wonder if that's part of the issue here. I don't think he's. I think right now they're expecting him to be Scheifele-esque, a number one center, and I don't think he is that. I think that there's probably other systems that he would fit. I think he would fit. I think Dubois would fit better in Calgary, and Monahan would fit better in Winnipeg. That's the way I see it. But I don't know if that's deck chair swapping. I mean, I guess it depends on other pieces and stuff. But I think there's something there.
I'm gonna say no. Like I said, I think you have. If you're Kevin Cheveldayoff and you're looking at this, I think you have some patience with Pierre-Luc Dubois. You let him go into this, go into a full season next year with a proper training camp, and understanding that and being a little more comfortable with being in Winnipeg, the systems, the coaching, and everything, and the teammates. You give him time. Like you need to do that. He's only 22. Like if you're trading away Pierre-Luc Dubois, because of it didn't quite work out as you expected in this season. I think that is completely overreaction, and you'll live to regret it.
Considering what they gave up to bring in Pierre-Luc Dubois, I mean, I'm with Sean. I think you got to give it more time to work out. Especially if you're going on an odd year with all the strangeness around the pandemic season here, let's give him a shot with a fresh start in a normal situation and see how he does.
I am actually going to piss Sean off and pull a Kevin and say I see what both sides are bringing to the table and think it's worthy of discussion, but I'm actually ultimately not picking a side. I just think it's worthy of discussion.
Thank you, Chris.
Chris,
Thank you, Chris.
I've missed you, Chris. I really have.
You'd make a good referee,
someone has to straddle the tables.
Join the non-pick a table side, Chris. That's great.
I choose my times.
There we go. Anyone? It's just the other playoff series: the Avs, Knights, Bolts, Canes, Bruins, Islanders. It's been fantastic hockey. All three of those series have had fantastic hockey, and I was wrong with my bold prediction that the Canes would tie the series, but I still think we got great hockey, and
how about that second period?
Yeah.
Well, the thing about those other series, Kevin, is the contrast in atmosphere coming through the TV there. I mean, it's a bit of a, I don't know if sad's the right word, but tonight's an example where we're going to have Montreal and Winnipeg, and then we're going to go to the Avs and Knights, and it almost feels like the Avs and Knights, even though no Canadian team, seems like the bigger event to watch and the thing to really be waiting up for, just because of those huge crowds that they've been getting. I mean, that was almost full capacity there in Vegas the other night, and Max Pacioretty after the game talking with NBC just couldn't help but gush over the impact of the crowd. So. Yeah, hopefully the Jets can find some way with the Manitoba government to get a few more fans in there, because 550, although not nothing, is a pretty minimal impact. The 2,500 that the Habs had for Game 6 against Toronto, I mean, that was very noticeable size of a crowd there. Yeah,
and I know this is down the road a little bit, but next round, either it's going to be Montreal or Winnipeg. They could be in a huge shock depending on who they play. Going down to the States and having that energy and that I can only imagine how that would fuel them even more, even though they're going to be the villains technically going in there.
Yeah.
Do we know how many fans they're going to have at tonight's game in Montreal? Is it another 2,500 or is it going to be more?
No, it's Dave. I think they're holding to the 2,500 at this point.
And just for comparison's sake, how many did Toronto have for Game 7? Because I think they upped it from what they initially had, right?
I think it was 500.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, I recall them being fairly vocal, but maybe it was only 500.
Yeah, I think they're still pumping in noise and fake crowd noise in there.
Oh yeah.
I think for like just looking at currently where things are at in Manitoba, I think it's going to be really hard for them to stretch anything higher than 5. I do, if it's Montreal, I could see them increasing it a little bit for sure, but I right now Manitoba's not in the best situation. I think, and again, it depends on vaccinations and a whole bunch of other things like that. Like the Nassau Coliseum had 12,000 last night. It feels like it's pretty much back to normal. Like pretty much sports are back to normal in terms of crowds for the most part in the States. So it would be nice if Canada caught up on that, but right now Manitoba's doesn't look like, based on the philosophy and everything that's going on, it doesn't look like that's going to happen in Manitoba anyway, unfortunately.
It'll definitely be interesting to see how big of an effect crowds will play as far as how the 3rd and 4th rounds go, though.
Yeah.
Whoever, like, I think, was it you, Chris, or that talked about how the shock of the Canadian teams going down and playing in front of almost full barns, or was it Kevin?
It was Devin.
Devin. Okay.
I'm here too. Surprisingly enough.
I have you, Devin. I have you.
That's a great point, and I think whether or not they are overwhelmed or they feed off of it, it's going to be a story, because there's going to be players who just have been like the first game that they have with like that many fans in front of them. I bet you the first 5 minutes are going to be just electric for those players, and they're going to feed off of it, and the energy that they're going to build off of is going to be so much fun to watch. And that's what it's been so much fun to watch the series in the States, because of all the fans. You've got these you tear up a little bit, because we've gone from basically nothing and piped in bullshit fan crap to real fans expressing real emotions, whether it's cheering or booing or saying the refs suck, or we've missed some of that stuff. Like the piped in fan stuff has been good for what it was, but the raw emotion is what we've missed. And seeing that in Tampa and Carolina and Nassau Coliseum and Vegas is just, and in Boston, it's just been amazing.
Who would have thought that Josh Bailey would have a song every time he comes on the ice? Like, but no, it's been fun. You could feel the intensity and all of it too. I think for the most part, I feel like the North Division has lacked intensity. I think that there's a number of different factors to that, but I think the biggest one is not a lot of fans in the stands.
Yeah.
But you could totally feel the intensity with Colorado, Vegas. That's been just phenomenal hockey back and forth with the crowd being all right. But in Carolina and Tampa, even if Tampa finishes in 5, can we just have 2 more games? Just let them play 2 more games for the hell of it.
Absolutely.
By the way, Carolina will compete for the Cup next year. There's no question about it. They're not going anywhere for sure. Yep. And the that Islanders crowd I just love that crowd.
Yeah.
It's so great to hear.
Yeah, it was nice that the Islanders and the NHL, were willing to admit that Brooklyn just wasn't working, and the Barclays Center in particular wasn't working, and they found a way to get them back in the Nassau Coliseum as a temporary solution before they moved to their new rink in Belmont Park there. But yeah, I don't know. There's something to be said about old, small, dingy barns and the character of that and what it brings out of fans. It just seems to create this different feeling, like it's this toughness in the fans and the harsh atmosphere that you're into, and a smaller rink like that. We've seen it in Winnipeg when they've had full capacity. It's a smaller rink, and it's scary in there. You listen to that noise and that energy there. And speaking of Winnipeg, well, whichever team gets through, I mean, it's looking pretty promising for Montreal at this point. But boy, the authorities and the political leadership in those provinces are going to be under enormous pressure to try and increase the fan presence in their rink for the third round. There, it's a bit of a difficult situation. You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. You're under fire because you're not loosening things up and giving the team a bit of an edge that way. You know, there's vaccinated healthcare workers. There's lots of reasons to get some more people into the building, but at the same time, you know, are you sending the wrong message to the public that the pandemic's over when it's really not over? You know, difficult situation for the provinces of Manitoba in particular, but also the Quebec government.
Yeah, and on the arena front, you hit the nail on the head with the old rustic barns. I will severely miss the Saddle Dome. Like once they get the new one built in here within the next few years, it's going to be sad. It's going to be a sad day when the Saddle Dome doesn't have hockey in it anymore.
Yeah.
Well, there's a less corporate feel to some of these older barns, and this there's nostalgia. There's memories. There's emotions built into the walls, the seats. The floors are sticky.
Yeah.
Was it the ghosts of the Forum that you heard all the time, whether it was and then the Olympia, and it's just there's a lot of these newer rinks just seem to lack character. And here in Calgary we've got the Dome, and it's just the weird shape of the roof and how fun that is. And you go to I would say even Rogers Arena in Vancouver, like, it's been around long enough. It's got memories. It's got some of that. You have to build that up. And Nassau Coliseum for the Islanders has that. It's been around since their dynasty days in the 80s. Mm-hmm. Like it has those memories.
You mentioned Rogers Arena. I think if you talk to a Canuck fan of a certain vintage that remembers going to games at the Pacific Coliseum, I think that they would connect with memories and experiences, within that facility and feel something different there, for a lot of the same reasons. It was an East Van. It didn't have the same corporate feel. There was Linden putting the guy through the glass the one time. There was, there's all these things, right? And those things, those memories last a lifetime for people. I was going to say, I was fortunate to have the experience to go to a Rough Riders game at the old Taylor Field there. And, you just feel that right away when you go in. And the opposition fans are like, what do you think of our stadium? Like, it was a point of pride for them that it was this really tough as nails environment, because they had this old, and it was dingy underneath. I was sitting on the older side of it, and but that really just seemed to bring out a little more in the fans, I think. Not that the new stadium isn't great, but there was something different about that old one that really was a point of pride for the fans.
Well, Edmonton's doing a great job up there with their new arena, making good memories. Wait, no, sorry, no, that's not right.
Yeah, that. Oh, remember that? No, yeah. But you even look like the Colisée back in the day when Montreal and Quebec had the rivalry, the old Boston Garden, where they had the smoke come out and they had to delay the game with the Stanley Cup final game. The Corral, but you mentioned the Pacific. Opponents called it the Pacific Mausoleum. But it's just, some of these old, I was thinking about that even last night. I think if I was to build a rink, I wonder if I would build it smaller and get the crowd closer into it and just bring something unique that brings that home ice advantage back. And I think that we're missing that a little bit. Mm-hmm. But even the old that old barn in San Jose in the 90s was something. Right? It's the Cow Palace. I was trying to remember what it was. The Cow Palace, yeah.
But even the current rink, it's got a low roof. It's a bit of a different feel and design in there, and it does create a bit of an atmosphere that's unique to a Sharks game.
Yeah. I think that's. To me, I think the old Memorial, when the Buffalo Sabres were competitive at the Odd, when they were a competitive hockey team. That arena
one of the reasons why the Canucks were so hesitant to leave Utica. That barn is old and has memories and like has that old feel with the crowd right on top of you.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's I hope they're able to find a way to like make a little bit like that in Abbotsford, because I mean they're going to have the fans there. Like you have built-in audience right there. Like, and you can if you sell Abbotsford and that area on the kids and the AHLers, you're going to be able to create the atmosphere. But you have to find a way to do that, because that's what makes it's that extra little cherry on top of playoff hockey is the atmosphere, and the crowd and how crazy it can get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When I think of the odd, I just think of that Mayday call where Brad May, once he's below the top of the circles, he's just blacked out. Just the body's just doing whatever going around the goalie and the crowd going nuts. I mean, that's a moment that just still is like a top playoff epic moment, right?
Yeah.
Would it be the same in the new rink? Hard to say.
Well, even Jim Robson's, though, he'll play on crutches.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was at the Pacific Coliseum. So
yeah. Oh, go back to the Oilers run in 06 and the old Rexall place there. I mean, the Oilers score, the Hurricanes guys, feels like the roof is caving in on them. Like it was just like just the noise and the intensity was insane.
Yeah.
And to just pull this all together with the poll question that Kevin put up. It's pretty. It's not very close. I think everyone's saying it's the Islanders. It's the Nassau Coliseum over the Golden Knights, and a lot of it is the memories, the emotions that the fans have gone through.
The camaraderie,
the camaraderie. Like, who else like teared up and cried when they saw those Islanders fans singing Piano Man or I can't remember, what was it, Piano Man outside the arena when they won the first round?
It was either Elton John or Billy Joel. I can't remember.
Yeah, but they're just singing and they're like, I was just like, I want to do that. Like complete FOMO there. Like I'm just like, I just want to go do that. Like, but it doesn't even matter if it's a team that I cheer for. I just want to go do that. Like, go be a part of that, an atmosphere like that. That's why we love going to hockey games. That's what we're missing from watching these games on TV and everything. It's with no fans. Like, so being able to at least watch games with fans and feel the energy, the emotion. Or
even just if the Flames make the playoffs next season, imagine just that like Red Mile energy coming back, right? Like just that's what we're missing. That's what this pandemic has really made us very much miss and aware that we don't have. Yeah.
Can you imagine, and we'll lead this quickly and we'll lead to a topic, but could you imagine if it was Game 7, Montreal-Toronto, the fans were in the stands in Toronto, Montreal, they had a little bit, but they had like their park that everybody was allowed to go outside and watch the game on TV. And then the rest of Canada is like cheering against the Leafs. Can you imagine the explosion in Canada that the Leafs lost? Like, just because it's that whole atmosphere of,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess the point is we're missing it, and it'll be nice when it comes back.
Even just going, you're right, Kev. Whether it's you're watching it with friends at home or at a pub. I remember watching so many games just at a pub, and you don't think everyone's kind of watching it, and then all of a sudden the explosion of cheers when a goal happens. And it's just like, all right, yeah, this is like, we're missing that, and I cannot wait. Like a quick, I don't know if this can help us to transition, but with the Women's World Championships getting rescheduled, and it's actually happening here in Calgary in the end of August, there should be fans for that. And I really, really hope that Calgary packs as much as we can. And if everything goes well, it will be full. It will be allowed to be full. I want to see Calgary fill that arena up as much as possible, because those women deserve it. They haven't been able to play in front of fans, and they haven't been able to play hockey nearly as much. Like, it was great to see them play the Dream Gap tour here in Calgary and then at the past couple weeks. But I want to see that they deserve to feel that emotion, feel that energy, especially if it's Canada versus US.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if they're running with the Stampede, there should be fans in the stands for.
Well, it's late August. Yeah, so there should be.
Yeah.
No, I'm just trying to put.
Stampede kind of remains to be seen. There's a lot of stuff up in the air still in regards to that.
Yeah, I would imagine. Just quickly, we didn't get Tyler and Chris's reaction to the Leafs and the Habs. I wanted to give them the opportunity to voice. And sorry, Devin, to bring up pain for you again. But it's not going to take that long. We'll move on to other good news stuff after that, I promise.
Beautiful.
Chris, we'll start with Chris this time.
Hey, Devin, have we twisted that knife enough? I'm not sure we have.
Like I told Sean, when the shoe's on the other foot, I'm not holding back.
Fair enough. No, as far as, and me and Devin were sending Instagram TikToks and whatnot back and forth throughout that series, and there was one of the Leafs fan after Game 4 being up 3-1 and talking to essentially his alter ego, just being like stoked about how they're doing so well after Game 4. He's just like, dude, shut up, just shut up. And like it was poetic how foretelling it was, because literally after I sent Devin that, they lost the last 3 games. So yeah. I very much feel for Leafs fans, because obviously not getting past the first round for the past 15-ish years has to suck as a fan. But just as far as like the team, I'm not sure what you would necessarily do different as far as like how you would build the team different. Like, you brought in the veteran guys on cheap contracts. You got that team toughness that they've been missing for a while. Like, other than maybe goaltending, I feel like they did everything that they could have. It's just shitty Leaf in the playoffs luck. I don't know what else to say at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the narratives around this series I find quite interesting. I mean, the main one is, everybody's saying the Leafs collapsed. I mean, okay, on paper they were the favorite based off the standings, but I mean, the Habs earned that win. I don't think it's entirely just the Leafs collapsing. People don't want to hear excuses, but not having Tavares hurt, not having Jake Muzzin in Game 7 hurt. What was really odd about it is that, it kind of had the feel of, Canucks Bruins Game 7 going into it, where the fans just didn't feel like they had a chance even before the game started. And sure enough, the Leafs came out really flat in that 7th game at home. And I don't know. It's a good team. There's something not quite right with the mix there. Brendan Shanahan and Kyle Dubas talked about the team lacking that killer instinct. So how they go about fixing that, I'm not sure. But ultimately at the end of the day, the best players kind of let them down. And the fans and media have been harsh on them, particularly on Mitch Marner. So, it's a hard lesson to learn. I think for the Oilers, they went through a pretty hard lesson there as well, getting swept by the Jets. But next year is another opportunity to sort of build off of that and learn from some tough defeats and see what they come up with. But there might be some people that want to take the match to the roster there. I don't think that's necessary with the Leafs, but they got to do something differently. And I don't expect any change in coaching or management. So we'll see how it goes this offseason.
So just kind of curious then, with you saying that there should be some changes, like just chuck some names out there.
Well, I mean, the obvious one is if they wanted to get, quantity back in a deal, William Nylander had a really good series. His stock is pretty high right now, but, does that create other holes that that you don't have now. Like it's easier said than done, right? But and Jack Campbell, I'm a believer in Jack Campbell, but clearly his goaltending wasn't near the quality of Carey Price's goaltending, and that was a factor as well. So, yeah, I don't know. They did some kind of tweak to that forward group that brings a little more killer instinct is really what they're lacking the most.
Yeah, we can't. I think I said this before, and I think we can't underestimate the loss of John Tavares in that series. They were able to win a few 3 games without him, but he's still your 1A, 1B center. He's still a guy that
a lot
can,
of experience too, right? Like that was
your
missing.
captain. Yeah, I think you can't underestimate that the impact that happened there. And I you're right. I think there are people who want a matchlet to this roster and major changes happening, but I think you have to continue on with what I think if they believe in Kyle Dubas and what he's doing, they should let him continue on and continue to tinker. And look how long it took Washington to figure it out. Not every team figures it out with their young core immediately and wins it with their young core, like Chicago and Pittsburgh.
Yeah. And if they do make a big change up front with one of those top 4 players, probably would be a William Nylander in my mind. Looking down the depth chart here, do you expect that Nick Robertson is able to take that next step and kind of push into that top 6 because of what he can bring and what he has brought to each team that he has played for? So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility.
It will be that. It definitely is going to be one of the more intriguing storylines in the offseason with the Leafs. But I agree with Tyler, and I think even with the Winnipeg series, I don't think Montreal is getting enough credit for how they're playing. It's not Carolina or Tampa Bay or Colorado or Vegas in terms of which, but they're getting the job done. They're doing exactly what they need to do to win. They're relying on their goaltender because they know that they can rely on their goaltender, and they're getting timely goals when they need it, and it's working for them. And you look at the Jets; they're having the same trouble penetrating that big 4D that the Leafs were having. So I still don't think the Canadians are getting enough credit for how well that they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still going to be an intriguing offseason in Toronto.
Well, sorry, I'm just going to add on to what he was saying just about Montreal and how they haven't enough credit. Maybe they don't want the credit. Don't look over here. We're doing our thing. Focus on everybody else. I don't want that pressure on me.
It took the Habs 7 games to beat Toronto, and it makes you wonder how the series would have went if Kotkaniemi and Caulfield were playing right at the start of the series. What a move that was to put them in. I guess Mark Bergevin and the organization felt like they didn't want to put too much weight on the shoulders of rookies Kotkaniemi's not a rookie, but lesser experienced guys. They wanted to lean on the veterans. That wasn't working, and they made the change before it was too late, and now they're off and running.
Yep.
Just want to throw a giant hypothetical out there because we were previously talking about like how we're enjoying some of these series and just how some of them matched up and all that. Can you imagine if the Leafs made it to round 3 and they faced the Islanders and Tavares was healthy?
That
would have been good.
Great.
It's still a possibility down the road.
Well, just even with that, we've kind of got something there with Boston. Matt Barzal was picked after Boston picked 3 players in that first round, and if the Islanders can win, Boston fans are just going to sit there and he can be a big part of it. Boston fans are going to sit there and go, "Oh."
No. Well, and hopefully that the Islanders will be chanting Barzal's better. That'd be great.
Yeah. And I mean, if it's Tampa, well, we'll cross the third round bridge when we get to it. But there's still some intriguing things that could happen there for sure.
From what I understand is like I think the matchups are pretty much set, It's going to be the winner of Boston Islanders against the winner of Tampa, Carolina, and then Colorado Vegas winner versus Winnipeg or Montreal.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's a few still some intriguing matchups that could happen in all four of those. So I think are very interesting. You have Boston, Carolina, I think is a bit of a rivalry. Boston, Tampa is a bit of a rivalry too. So, but we'll see. We're not there yet. Let's go across the sea here. Andrew Mangiapane is making a name for himself, Devin. See, I told you we'd get to some good news for you here. Starring in the gold. What's the score in the game right now? I'm sorry, is anyone kind of keeping an eye on?
One after 2 periods.
Canada,
Finland.
And pardon me?
Canada, Finland.
Yeah, it's Canada, Finland. Mangiapane is certainly making a case. He's been there probably not first, probably second best player on the roster. For the Flames, Devin, that's got to be a good thing. And I'm just going to throw it out here. Is he making a case to be on the Olympic team? Or is that too far down the road?
There's too much depth there for him to be making a case. Like he's an awesome player, and this is definitely his coming out party to the world, if you will, let alone the NHL, to showcase how good he actually can be and is. He was arguably with the best 5-on-5 player for the past 2 years for the Calgary Flames. So being a Flames fan, watching him every night, I'm not surprised. This is who he is. He's a competitor. He works his ass off, and he will do anything he can to score and to win. So yeah, it is just a massive coming out party for him, and I'm so happy for him. I really am. And not to mention that the move that Troy Stecher, how does that feel, Vancouver fans?
I had to go, is that Troy Stecher?
The balls on that kid. But just going back to Mangiapane, he didn't play for the first, I believe, game or two, and which was very surprising. But once he got into the lineup, he hasn't looked back, and nor should he. And you gotta, being a Flames fan, so happy for him.
I believe he did play the first 2 or 3 games because of quarantine issues.
Quarantine, yeah.
Oh, okay.
To Kevin's point, Mangiapane's a long shot for the Olympic team. But anytime that you answer the call from Hockey Canada for the World Championship and do well, it definitely gets their thinking going a little bit about some of those depth players that they want to include on their roster. So never say never. It certainly he certainly helped his case here with his performance in this World Championship.
Yeah, Mangiapane, and then the big news out of that tournament for Canada was the play of Owen Power, and then how well he's fit into that team, and hasn't really looked like he's like a step or two behind. He's actually looked really good, and actually won player of the game at least one at one point in this tournament. And I think in terms of being able to raise your draft stock coming up to this upcoming draft, whether or not he goes to Buffalo or Seattle, so one of those teams is getting a really good player there.
Yeah.
And just going back to Mangiapane, because that's what we're talking about here, Sean. Every single year he's gotten better, and this is just another stepping stone within the confidence. He will gain a lot of confidence within doing this, and if depending on what really happens with the Flames this year, he could be easily playing top line minutes next year.
Yeah, I would like to see it. Actually, I could see a Lindholm. If it's Lindholm, Gaudreau, Kachuk, and Mangiapane. Although I like Mangiapane on the left side a little bit better, but I think that it bodes well that he's going to have some confidence going into next year. It doesn't mean that we're picking him for 40 or 50 goals or anything like that, but he's on a good track, and I think it's a good sign for the Flames, and it might give them more options, maybe. Mm-hmm. But I also on the other end of that, it could lead to overreaction too. So,
well, he hasn't. I don't know about overreaction though, Kev, because all he's done, like I said, every year is just improve. So I wouldn't even put that on him.
No. What I mean is, yeah, we could easily trade Gaudreau and because we've got Mangiapane, right?
No, those are two separate players, but yeah.
But but with that left side, that left wing depth, like as you said, you think you like Mangiapane on the left wing. Guess who's also left wings? Gaudreau and Tkachuk. Yeah. So I think it does give them options. I think it does allow them to potentially look at making a bigger move with one of those players. On our last episode, Kev, you brought up the idea of the Flames looking at Buffalo and seeing if they can find a way to get Eichel or Reinhart.
I did, yeah. But and then what did I conclude though?
Would we talk our way through it? The price would be too high. Yeah, because you look at Gaudreau. He's a year away from UFA. He may there's questions whether or not he'll sign here in Calgary. Do you think he's signing in Buffalo? No, Buffalo knows that too.
Yeah.
And then Tkachuk is 1 year away from RFA with Arbrights, and that he could be 2 years away from walking because his UFA year is the year after. So and
his qualifying offer for his arbitration is $9 million. So, he depending if he gets traded or not, he could just do that 1 year and just walk away.
Yeah, I just as far as Gaudreau though goes, I'm not in Calgary, so I precurse by saying this, but I'm not necessarily buying the idea that Gaudreau wants as out as I think some people are saying. I've heard. I'm hearing some people say that, and I'm hearing people insistent that he wants to stay. I'm more inclined to believe that he would prefer to stay, just based on what I've heard, based on his language, the way he played down stretch. I'm not necessarily a believer that Gaudreau just necessarily wants out. If I'm not saying that Gaudreau would deny a trade, but I don't necessarily think he desperately wants out.
No, I think that if Calgary does keep him and sign him to a deal, that there will be a no trade clause within there or no movement clause within starting 2 years into his new contract, and then after that he'll want to potentially move out because all these players, the majority of these players that are in the NHL, they want to win. They want to see some sort of success, and if once like I talked about with McDavid, if he doesn't see success or doesn't see a trend in the right direction within the next 2 years, then I truly believe that McDavid and Gaudreau would feel the same way, would want out.
Yeah, Gaudreau has a modified no trade clause that kicks in next season. He'll submit a 5-team trade list, so only 5 teams that he'd be willing to be traded to, and usually when it's that specific, that low of a list of teams that a player would be traded to, they can usually massage that list enough so it's basically 1 or 2 teams. Just ask Jim Benning when he had to deal with Ryan Kessler's trade request.
Mm-hmm. I don't think Gaudreau would be that stingy, though. Realistically, he knows what he's worth, and as long as he's going to a contender for 1 year, then I really don't see that being an issue at all. And that no movement that clause does kick in July 1st.
I was to say I don't know if it's July. Normally it is July 1st. I don't know if that's the same.
Wow, same July 1st. Yeah, whatever
this year, but yeah.
In July.
Yeah.
Post entry draft, I believe, is what it'll be. Maybe August 1st.
Just quickly, I'd love to hear what Tyler and Chris think about this. A couple things with Buffalo here as we're jumping on that. Elliot Friedman talked on 31 Thoughts. I don't know if everyone had a chance to hear that, but it sounds like from Buffalo's perspective, what it sounds like is they're wanting to pump the Eichel situation to another team. That's the wording he used. So that gives me some red flags when it comes to Jack Eichel. I don't is it going to be as much as people think? But not only that, is this a player? in one hand, yeah, this seems like a guy, seems like a franchise-altering player, but there seems to be some headaches there. So that, and we threw a scenario out on the lottery. If you're Buffalo, do you consider trading the number 1 pick this year?
Okay, well, as far as the second question there, I mean, you always have to be willing to see what you can get for the number 1 pick, but you don't see it happen very often anymore because the importance of picking in the top 2 or 3 of the draft is just such a huge gamble if you pass on a franchise changing talent or perhaps even a generational talent just because you think you can make a good deal with some guys that are already in the league. I would be shocked if it happens. As far as Eichel, that's definitely buyer beware if another team takes him on. I've never liked Eichel's attitude, frankly. Maybe it's just the way he's just not communicating the way that I'd like to see, but it's just the body language in some of his comments in the public just doesn't scream team player to me. And now we're seeing that with his injury and how this past season went. And I mean, it's hard not to conclude that he doesn't want to be there. And so now what happens for Buffalo trying to get some kind of good return there when it looks like they're going to have their hand forced?
Yes, definitely an interesting situation for Buffalo. Maybe it's just because I don't watch the Eastern games all that often, but prior to basically this current season and the current situation that Buffalo finds himself in, I never knew of Eichel being a problem player at all. So as far as whether teams should be buyer beware as far as if they're going to take him on, I was never aware of any sort of underlying issue, but maybe that's just I'm not paying close enough attention.
He's a cocky guy. He wants to win.
Players cocky though.
Exactly. Well, there's a good cocky confidence, and some people might be rubbed the wrong way with his type of cocky confidence. And
like a Patty Kane as confidence. What are we trying to What's this What would be a good comparable example here?
Oh man, like a Ryan Kessler type of confidence.
I was going right there, Dev. Good pull.
It's just a cocky confidence that you don't want to really be around, but in the right circumstance, in the right situation, he will be a great player for the organization. So buyer beware, sure, depending on where he's going, but if he's surrounded by the proper people, then he'll be just fine.
I think one of the biggest issues with Eichel is the fact that they put the C on him so early. Yeah. I think they were feeling the pressure of him trying to match McDavid, and they put the C on him. And he's not. I think he's one of those guys that had he been groomed to be the captain, sort of in his mid to late 20s, I think he would have been fine. But I think just there's something wrong with Buffalo in the fact that they can't. Well, they just can't win, and losing is toxic. And I think that's part of it. But I also think they forced him into a captaincy role a lot sooner than ideally you would have put him in. Because I remember when they were trying to figure out who should be the captain for the Canucks. They went with Luongo, and then that didn't work out. And then they were there were people clamoring for Ryan Kessler to be captain. But I was always on the no camp there, because you need someone a little more calming. You need someone to rah get the guys going, but you still need someone who's not going to rub people the wrong way with his attitude. And I think that might be a bit of that with Eichel there. I think you get him into a team that's not a dumpster fire and has a good locker room, and he'll be fine. It's just, I think it's more of it's a little bit of everything that's caused this. The wording on that is what caught me, Kev. I think it wasn't necessarily that they're looking to see what they can do and see if they can get a good package for Jack Eichel that can help them build through Dylan Cousins and Rasmus Dahlin and insert either Owen Power or Matthew Beignet, which I believe are likely going to be the choices there for them if they pick up number one, and build through that group now. But at this point, and when that wording is used, I think someone's trying. There's definitely some messaging trying to be sent there, whether it's by the team or whatever. To, I don't know whether it's to wake Eichel up or what, because that wording is really depressing his market value. If they're saying kick the can to another team type deal, is that sounds like they're treating him like trash. And I think that's
and it sounds like they're just throwing their hands up in the air and they're saying, screw it, we're done with this guy. Yeah.
Well, at the same time, though, you got to be, be somewhat protective about the organization and what they value within that. Because if Jack Eichel's going to be smearing your name through the mud, essentially, then get the fuck out of here. Nice little punt to the side, and everybody knows how good he is. So it's not really smearing Eichel's name essentially for his talent. Maybe him as a person for sure, but you got to, I think you said it right, Sean. If you surround him by the right locker room, the right people, then he'll be fine.
Yeah, and I don't think from what I've read and listened and heard and everything, I don't see him being the issue here. Is that they've got a disagreement on how to handle an injury, and because these players now are a lot more selfish in a good way in terms of how they're handling their health and everything now. I think I don't know what's going on with the management, why they're not willing to let him go off and see that and see if they can make that work, as opposed to just forcing him to a procedure or a recovery that it's what they want versus working with the player. I think there's more to this than just a quote unquote bad attitude with Eichel, because he's cocky, he's brash, but his play backs it up, and he is a legit number one franchise center. You look at his point productions and everything, like he has it. He's got it all on the ice. So you got to find a way to make. Like, if you're not willing to make it work with him, then I think Buffalo's in jeopardy of ruining their reputation even more than they are of doing anything to Eichel's reputation.
Yeah, I think both are. I don't think both are. I don't think that there's an innocent party here. I'm not sure where Eichel's attitude is part of this for sure, but I don't think Buffalo is innocent in this in any way, shape, or form. And as I said on the lottery day, this is an important offseason for Buffalo. You've got the potential here. If you're moving from Michael, which you can do, I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. You've got Shane Wright in 2022. You've got Connor Bedard in 2023. And the way things are going, Buffalo's going to have a really good chance of picking at least one of those. If you're one of them, we haven't seen the Eric Lindros thing happen since the 90s. But if I'm a Shane Wright or I'm a Connor Bedard, I certainly have some questions about where this organization is at in terms of how they're handling injuries, in terms of how they're handling anything that I'm not sure I'm jumping up and down to be with Buffalo. I may have that Canadian kid message. Oh, sure, I'll be happy to be there, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised if there's some red flags for both of them going forward if they end up there. I mean, you don't have, like, your career is not. You even look back. Let's look back on what Lindros went through here. He went through a concussion that limited what his career potential could have been. It was good, but people had Eric Lindros way up there. Like, he was supposed to be they were people thinking that he was going to be an all-time great. And he had concussions, and his career was limited. And he even saw that with his brother Brett. If you're Shane Wright, you're Connor Bedard, that has to the injury factor in this has to play something into it. I'm not saying that they're going to say no, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's in play in some way, shape, or form. And some people may think that that's a stupid take, but
well, as I said, like the player, these younger players are being a little more selfish. I think they have to. Like, they have to take care of their health. They have to take care of their brand, because like Jack Eichel playing in Buffalo is not nearly as an attractive brand and ambassador for any sort of sponsors as he would be, say, if he was in Philadelphia or Vegas or LA or New York or any of the Canadian markets. Like, there's so much to chew on in this situation. Yeah, I think both parties haven't really done this, taking care of this properly. But he's not the first player who said they wanted out or have made rumblings that they wanted out. This is now not the third player in the last 5, 6, 7 years that has said that they want out of Buffalo. One of them turned into a Conn Smythe and Selke level player. Like, I look at that and I just, there's so much. Like, why would anyone want to go to a franchise where the owners don't give a shit and just literally want to put players out there just to appease the core fans who are pissed off?
Mm-hmm.
Like is if you move Eichel, are you holding on to Ristolainen? Are you holding on to Reinhart? Or are you going full on, like, just getting as many assets as possible and going full on rebuild again? And this is already a team that's missed the playoffs. How many years in a row? Let's see here.
I think that is the longest playoff drought.
Years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10 years in a row. And then they haven't won a round in 14 years. They've made the playoffs 4 times out of the last almost 20 years. 5 times out of the last 20 years they've made the playoffs. Like, we were talking about, like, it's just, and that's a hockey loving market. You've got some fans north of the border in Ontario that cheer for them because they hate Toronto. And then you've got the upstate New York. Like, it's a hockey market, and you've made the playoffs 5 out of the last 20 years, and you've got owners who just don't give a shit. Why would anyone want to go there?
What did John Shannon say, Tyler? It's the second biggest market share?
I'm not sure what we're referring to there. I know NBC's ratings that Buffalo has not been one of their top markets this year, but typically, when it comes to NHL viewership, Buffalo is one of the top 2 or 3 markets. In their overall ratings picture.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting. See that's another place. It's going to be a fascinating off season for sure.
Yeah.
2-1 Finland with 2-2 with 7 to go right now. So as Chris is keeping an eye on that.
Once again, Chris, I'm delayed. What are you doing to me?
Well, stop being delayed. Catch up, would you?
Oh man, I don't have cable.
I just wanted to touch on the awards here. Calder nominees. Was there any surprises? Any snubs there?
I wouldn't say snubs, no. Like were Canuck fans hoping Höglander was going to eventually get a nom? Probably. Was it realistic? Probably not. As far as any surprises, I always struggle saying the last name, but the goalie, Delcevich.
The Delcevich.
Yeah, he kind of came out of nowhere as far as like for my radar is concerned, but I don't know if that's just because I wasn't paying attention to the East very much. But yeah, he was a pleasant surprise.
Have to think Kaprizov's going to win the Calder, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's kind of a walk away.
Yeah.
And Nedeljkovic was actually on waivers earlier this year as well, and no one picked him up.
Yeah, it wasn't there. I don't think there's anyone that was a snub there. Kaprizov 51 points in 55 games. Jason Robertson 45 points in 51 games. And then the next one was both plus players. I know that's a bit of a flawed stat, but I still think it shows something when you compare it to Josh Norris, who was 10 points back of Robertson in more games, so 35 points in 56 games, and was a negative 12. So, Nick Nedeljkovic really came on it late in the season. So, and there was no defenseman that really stood out. So I think the best of the bunch was Ty Smith in New Jersey. But I think these were the three best. I think the only other ones would have been maybe looking at other goalies. With there was a multitude of a few goalies that could have gotten the nod there.
Okay, I'm going to say it. Listen, no disrespect to Austin Matthews. He had a great year. He's going to win the Rocket Richard, but Jacob Slavin deserves a Lady Byng. I really believe that. He had 2 penalty minutes this year, 10 penalty minutes last year, 18 penalty minutes the year before. He's generally played full seasons. As a defenseman, getting 2 penalty minutes is Nicholas Lidstrom level skill, and I just think he deserves it. I think it's about time. I've never been a huge fan of the Lady Byng trophy, but if we're going to give it, if this is a year, it should go to a defenseman, and there's 2 that were nominated, and I really think that Jacob Slavin should win it.
Yeah, no arguments here.
Yeah. All the other like low penalty minutes to players were sort of middle roster or bottom roster players. Slavin is talk about the player who I don't think people realize how good he is. Like we talk about how no one like I don't think people realize how good a few of those Carolina defensemen are.
Well, he's certainly, Dougie Hamilton's probably, the chances are Dougie Hamilton is going to get a Norris nomination, but I would argue that is like, I would love to see his stats with or without Jacob Slavin, because I think he's a much better defenseman with him than he is without him. For sure. I think within this series, I've seen that as well. I'm not saying that Dougie Hamilton doesn't deserve a Norris nomination, but I think his play has been improved with the play of Jacob Slavin.
For sure. And look at the defenseman, his defensive partner in Calgary, Mark Giordano, another solid defenseman, good two-way player that was that helped him and supported him through in his development as an NHL player, right?
Okay. And then some historic moment yesterday in the OHL. Taya Curry was the first female goaltender drafted by the Sarnia Sting. She is the first OHL female to be drafted in the OHL. Significant moment. This is not a token political thing. She is a legitimate goaltender and someone I think that is going to play a lot with the Sarnia Sting, and a name that we're going to hear a lot. Just really happy for her. Glad she got that. I just wish she didn't have to be interviewed by poor Ron McLean, because I don't know if anyone saw that, but I was just cringy. You could do rodeo now. Shut up, Ron. Shut up.
No, I didn't catch that, but that, yeah, of course it would be weird with Ron McLean. Of course. It's getting to be like with Pierre McGuire. As soon as they do an interview, you just know something odd is going to happen.
I was just about to ask, has Ron become the new Pierre?
Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
Also, I believe she's the second to be drafted in Canada because I think Sabatos was drafted out of the Dub, right?
Yeah, Shannon Sabatos actually started in the WHL as well. So,
but yes,
yeah, awesome. Can't wait to see what what more comes from her playing, getting some reps and everything with in the OHL, as well as growing in and hopefully becoming another big star for women's hockey.
Yeah, maybe in the NHL. Who knows? Some quick Flames news, and then we'll touch on the Canucks here. Joakim Nordstrom is signed with the KHL, so he's not coming back.
Good riddance.
I disagree, Devin. I actually do think it's a bit of it's not a huge loss, but.
Well, I mean, he came in to kill penalties, and he came into, I just think that there's other players that could help the Flames and have maybe a different, better impact throughout the year than Nordstrom did this year. That's why I said good riddance. Well, maybe it's not good riddance. Like, it's
a bit harsh, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
You're gone. Get out of here.
I'm gonna punch it back to Russia. Let's go.
I know the love. I mean, we've bottom six as a theme of topic around this land, but I do think Joakim Nordstrom is a guy. He didn't get off to a good start, but I understand.
He's expensive.
Yes, fair. Dustin Wolf, U.S. goaltender of the year.
Woo!
With the Everett Silver Tips, continues to get notoriety. Another interest. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him as this years go on. But
well, I think he's graduating to the to pros that after this season, correct?
Yeah, but I doesn't mean that I think he's going to be in the Flames lineup though soon.
No. He's not someone you rush.
Yeah.
Well, especially like you have still Markstrom there. Like he's not going to be sitting on the bench like DiPietro did or eating popcorn. He's got to be playing.
Yeah.
And Dev, it's not woo, it's woo. That's what Wolf say.
Oh my God. I expect this from Kevin.
Yeah, he's copying me, and then what he does
after a while.
and then what he does is he says my jokes are terrible, and then he tells worse jokes. That's what's going on.
It's all about the delivery.
It really is. I'll teach you.
Kevin.
Let's move on to the Canucks. Expecting to bring in another assistant coach. The name Kirk Muller is out there. That's an interesting name.
Yeah, I mean it's a name that I think from ownership's point of view, that would be a sell with the fans. There's a lot of credibility there with Muller. He's had some head coaching experience in the NHL, and I guess we shouldn't be surprised if they're going to come back with the same general manager and head coach that there would be some tweaks elsewhere. So, but we'll see. There's been lots of speculation and scuttlebutt out there surrounding the Canucks that has not proved to be true. So I'm a little skeptical on that.
Yeah, although where I heard it from is a credible source. So that's that's. Well,
and weren't Don Taylor and Rick Dollywall talking about it?
Yes, that's incredible. Yeah.
It's all it is until something happens, it's all scuttlebutt and all rumors and or speculation too. Because that's, I think I always want to make sure we know the difference between a rumor and speculation. Speculation is just people talking about what they think they could, and rumors are they're hearing that something's happening. And I think this one, I think Kirk. I heard also Brad Shaw as another potential a coach coming in. He's been around. The last one that I see him listed as was being a assistant coach for John Tortorella in Columbus. There's going to be. I think that it is a smart move to bring in someone else, bring in some fresh eyes to maybe help them. Fix some issues that I think everyone sees, especially on the power play, as well as some defensive zone issues. But it would be smart for them to bring someone in and basically replace Manny Malhotra, who they didn't replace this season.
And the Sedins.
Yeah, so that's not speculation or rumor. That's been confirmed by Jim Benning that that there's been discussion about getting the Sedins involved in the hockey operation, and I think that's pretty cool. It's hard to tell exactly how that's all going to look, but again, as far as the credibility goes, I mean, there's not many players higher on the list that are revered by the fans, more than the Sedins. So, and they're not too far removed from the game. So as far as having kind of current ideas, in the brain trust, I don't think it's a bad thing.
And it sounds like they want to learn the way Steve Yzerman learned. So, which is like they're willing to go from the bottom to the top. They don't want to be placed in a position just because of who they were. And I think you have to respect and admire that. That's a good way to learn. And certainly you look at, Steve Yzerman and his success, it's worked for him. And even look at Joe. I think Joe Sakic was the same way, if I'm not mistaken. I think he had to work his way through the system before he became general manager. So,
well, it's kind of like when they were players, right? They didn't just come in and take over. They sort of earned their way up the lineup.
Yeah.
Pretty sure the same with Bill Guerin too. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah. I believe Rick Dollywall reported that basically they're willing to start off in Abbotsford and kind of work their way up through the system and learn the business. So I'm definitely okay with that. And to keep us updated on the game, it is currently going to overtime for the gold medal game, tied 2-2.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I guess we got to wrap this up so we can watch that, eh?
Yeah. Yes. We'll wrap it up. Unless anything else we need to talk about, I think we've covered.
Just very quickly, Kevin, we were talking about awards. It was announced this morning, the finalists for the Selke Trophy for Best Defensive Forward. Alexander Barkov, Patrice Bergeron, and Mark Stone. 3 very deserving candidates there.
Barkov,
I would love to
recognition.
Yeah. I would love to see Barkov win it, but it's becoming the Patrice. They should probably name it the Patrice Bergeron Award.
Yeah,
I'm going to say Mark Stone wins it. He's been robbed the last couple seasons. I think they'll find. I think the Selke becomes a little bit of a career award at times, and I think this is one year that they'll probably give it to Mark Stone for that, and it'll be the first time a winger's won it in I think maybe since Yuri Letnin.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, obviously, by either of them. Or all of them, actually. But I think that Barkov will get it this year.
We'll see. By the way, can we change the lottery to the Taylor Hall lottery? Because he is basically won every lottery. Or a team he's been involved in has won the last 3 lotteries or something? It's the Taylor Hall lottery.
It's valid.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Brought to you by Taylor Hall.
Brought to you by Taylor Hall.
Although moving forward, I guess you can make the argument that Boston's probably not going to win the lottery next season.
No.
Can you imagine if they do?
I mean, Boston,
there's larger issues at hand if that happens.
Arizona didn't have a chance. So it's either one or the other.
Yeah.
True. Forfeited pick. Damn, it was too bad we didn't have the repick. Anyway, that would have been fun. How do we follow everyone?
I am BeardyConnect03 on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter at T-Noble, T-N-O-B-L-E.
I'm at Schneids on most social media.
At GordHouse09 to follow Devin.
KVOE podcast _hockey, Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, the Hockey Podcast. We're back. Devin, Shauner, I think we're recapping tonight's game tomorrow. I think that's the plan. Keep an eye out. We'll tweet out the info, but we will be back this week for more content. Subscribe, like the video, share with your friends. Thanks, everyone. And we also have video clips up of shorter ones. Share those as well. Thanks, everyone. We will talk to you all very soon. Enjoy overtime. Bye for now.